Hi, hello, happy Thursday. I wanted to hop on here real quick because I've been getting a lot of feedback, a lot of questions about marriage. Yeah? Questions about marriage because marriage, let's be honest, it's tricky, right? It's really hard. But I can tell you, it's worth it if you do the work. And that's the biggest thing that I've learned is that it's not easy. You don't just have the white picket fence image of what a relationship is. Marriage really takes time. It takes understanding. It takes so much hard work. So if you're in it, you have to make sure that every single day you are choosing the other person. And there's days that I choose my husband even when I don't really like him. And I can say that very honestly because I think that's just it. We're all humans. We all have good days. We all have bad days. But just being open to understanding that they are human too is huge. So I just want to dive in here and just share some of my top tips. Please feel free to comment below, ask questions below. I love talking about growth and especially this because I know taking care of my own health and happiness has really transformed my marriage into what it is. Kenny was my high school sweetheart all growing up. And so it was interesting. A lot of people will look at us and be like, oh my gosh, relationship goals. But trust me, sister, you don't want what our relationship once was because we were both very toxic to each other. And we did go through a break. And then we came back realizing that we want to choose each other. And even through choosing each other, it was still really hard. We still have really hard days. We had 3 kids back to back. He has crazy work hours and really navigating that is super bumpy, right? It's like a roller coaster that we got good days and you got bad days. And that's really to be expected with any relationship, whether it's a marriage, whether it's you and a sibling, you and a parent, you and a friend, you and a coworker, whatever. There's 2 people in a relationship and both people have to be willing to choose that. So in my marriage, once I realized, I sat down and I was like, this isn't what I want. I don't want this feeling. I don't want these emotions. I don't want to live every single day but never see my husband. That's not what I signed up for. I don't want to not get time together. I looked at my life and what I didn't like or what I didn't want to continue for the next 10 years plus. And I said, all right, how can I fix that? I'm a very solution-oriented person. So I look at a problem and I ask myself, how can I fix it? What can I do different? What can I change, right? And I'll be honest, I didn't want to change me. I didn't want to change who I was. I don't want to change who he is because I love him and he loves who I am. But what I realized is that in order to grow together as a couple, we do have to subtly change. We do have to change our behaviors, our tone, the way we act, the way we respond. And that's been the biggest help for me is really knowing that I had to create my own happiness. So I think that's the first thing is make sure that you're being very intentional in your marriage. If you're like, it's just meh right now, or gosh, I want to choke my husband, right? I need to ask you, are you being intentional in your marriage? Are you intentionally trying to grow it every single day? Question that I asked Kenny just yesterday. I sat down and I said, when you make a decision, you really have to ask yourself, are you being the best version of a wife that you can be? Because if the answer is no, then that means you need to change your behavior. You need to change the way you're talking, the way you're acting, all those things, right? And so I want to ask you, are you being the best version of a wife that you can be? Are you being the best version of a husband that you can be? And if the answer is no, it's okay. There's no shame. We all fail. We all make mistakes. But the cool thing is you have the power to change that. And that's really what I found. I found that I have the power to create a marriage whatever I want it to be like, right? And I didn't want to just live a mediocre, let's barely get by. I want an exceptional marriage. I want to thrive. I want to just be so madly in love. I want it to be like an ugly Nicholas Sparks book where it's so gross you just can't stop watching, right? That's the kind of marriage that I want. And maybe that's a little far-fetched, but it's for real. And I'm going to do everything in my power to show up as an exceptional wife, to show up in my marriage. But one thing that I noticed is I was waiting around. I was waiting around for him to make it better. When I realized that I had to stop waiting for him to fix our problems and instead own my own marriage, right? A relationship is two people giving 100%. You need to give 100, they need to give 100, right? You can't control how much they give in the relationship, but you can control how much you give. And I realized I wasn't giving very damn much. I was like, no, I expect more from him, and so I'm not doing anything until he shows up, right? That's where I was being not nice. I was not being a good version of a wife, right? Like I was not my best wife mode at that time. And so I realized if I want to change things, and it does start with me, I have to change me. I have to change the things that I'm doing, the things that I'm saying, the way that I'm acting. And so I really had to own my marriage. I had to say, this is what I want to achieve. This is where I'm at now. And am I giving 100%? The answer was no. And so I wanted to change that. And I was willing to change that. And I did everything, and I still do everything that I can do to make it that exceptional marriage that I want to live. The first thing that I did, and I think this is the biggest tip, most helpful tip, is understanding the other human. This is huge. Whether you're in a marriage or in a relationship with someone else, anyone, your best friend, your sister, your mama, all the things. Love languages. I want you to go to Google and I want you to type the 5 love language quiz, and I want you to take it for yourself. And then I want you to send it to your spouse and ask them if they are willing to take it for you. Just full disclosure here, I asked my husband 6 times. In the first 5, he laughed at me and said no, or just completely ignored my message, right? Finally, when I was sitting right next to him, he was willing to take the test for me. So it was a struggle. He was not on this bus. He was like, what are you even doing? That's weird. No. But when I took the quiz for myself, I learned that I love quality time. I learned that I love words of affirmation. What does that mean? It means I love spending time with people in order to bond with them. That's what's meaningful to me. That's what matters to me in my life, time together. I also learned that I want to be appreciated. I want people to say good job. I want people to say you did awesome. I want affirmed in the fact that I'm enough, that I'm accepted, that I'm loved. And when I recognized that, I recognized what I was looking for and what I wasn't getting. And I realized that I was waiting for validation from him, and I had to really start validating myself. And I think that's super, super important. It's not your spouse's job to make you happy. It's not your job to make your spouse happy. 100%. And if that's how you're spending your time, waiting for your spouse to make you happy, you are going to be lost and broken and hurt for a long time, friend. It's your turn to make you happy. But it's very important for you to understand what makes you tick, what makes you feel accepted and loved. Just like it's important for you to find out their love language, because oftentimes we love, oftentimes we love in our love language. So if his love language is not the same as yours, then he's going to love you in his love language versus loving you in your love language. And when I could see that, I figured out what his love language was, and I realized what I was doing wrong. I was loving him in my love languages when his were the complete opposite. And it meant it took effort on my end to show him I loved and appreciated him through his love language. That's powerful. Realizing that you are 2 different people with 2 different feelings and you respond differently to the world around you is incredibly huge. And that was the biggest kind of catalyst for my marriage, was understanding that just because I think and feel and react one way doesn't mean that's the way he thinks and feels and reacts, right? And so when I was able to really hone in on his love language and start delivering in his love language, things started getting better. And again, I'm human. I fail all the time, but I'm always continuing to try and grow that. I'm always making it an effort to make sure that I'm loving him the way he needs loved. So number 1 tip is definitely learn love languages. It's so interesting what you do too, and get creative with how you're using that love language. Second thing is be very proactive. If you are that person, I'm the quality time person, and again, I was waiting around for him, I would ask him, like literally, you guys, for years. I have a box of manila envelopes that I made into date nights as a Christmas present 3 years ago. And I had one for each month. I think there was probably 25 dates in there maybe. But they were all different prices, all different adventures, everything. And I gave them to him thinking that, hey, I did the planning. You're just going to want to spend time with me, right? His love language is not quality time. That's not his love language. And so I gave him these box of dates, and then he didn't use any of them. And me, personally, I was like, he doesn't want to spend time with me. And my husband, if you know him and you know I am very introverted, right? I'm quiet until you get to know me. I don't like to put myself out there, and he is an extrovert. We go into a crowd of people and he is away from me making new friends. He don't even care that I'm there, right? Like, he is making all the friends in the whole wide world. And I'm like, oh, let me stick right beside you, right? I want to hide. We're completely different people. And so I took him rejecting my dates as him rejecting me. And I would constantly tell him, hey, I want a date night. Hey, I want a date night. Hey, I want a date night. And he would never plan them. I was waiting for him to take these steps towards my love language when, one, he didn't know my love language, and two, quality time wasn't his, so he didn't really care to dig into that, right? And so I was busy waiting for him to fix the problem when I realized that it's my job to be proactive. If I need date nights and I need that time together, it's my job to figure it out, right? Trust me, it's the most unromantic thing in the world. It makes me crazy. As a mom who already does all the things, like the cooking, the cleaning, all the things, the last thing I want to do is have to plan my own date nights. Again, I want like the Nicholas Sparks, like cutest movie ever, right? I want him to plan the date nights. I want him to do the romantic things. But I learned that's not who he is. And if I'm expecting that from him when it's not who he is, I will always be disappointed. But if I can go out of my way at the beginning of every week, like, hey babe, what night are you free? Let's plan a date night. He can tell me what night he's free, and then I can do the work to set up a date night for what I want and I need. We actually have an adventure, like adventure challenge, maybe, is that what it's called? I'll have to share it with you guys. But it's a date night book where you just scratch it off and then you go do the date night, and it's super, super fun. Pinterest has tons of ideas. I've shared a few ideas of things that we've done, but I had to realize if I wanted date nights, it was my responsibility to show up in our marriage, me, give 100%, so that I can fulfill that need in myself, so that I could get that time with him that I genuinely wanted. And I think a lot of the times we set up these expectations for failure immediately, right? If I was to constantly expect him to plan, he's not a planner. If I constantly expected him to set time aside for me, that's not going to happen because he loves helping other people. If I constantly expected him to fix the problem, one, I'm not giving 100% when I can easily pick out a date and figure out what we're going to do and tell him, hey, show up for this, just like everything else, like hello mom mode, we plan all the things. Why not also just throw that in there so it's a non-negotiable? And so when I made it a non-negotiable every single week, we're doing some sort of date night, we're spending time together, and I stick to it. I'm really strict with it. When I'm strict with it is what I'm saying. I fail sometimes is what I'm trying to say. Then we get that time together, and guess what? It makes me feel good. I feel excited, I feel loved, I feel accepted. But if I'm waiting around for him to fix that, we're going to get nowhere. And we won't be living that happier, healthier marriage because someone's always without, right? So I need you to be proactive. If you need something in your marriage, you have to make sure that you are setting it up, right? So number 3, the third thing, biggest tip that I would give is, I've said it twice now, stop expecting them. Stop expecting them to know, to do, to say, to hear, to all the things, right? A lot of the times when we get in relationships, we just automatically expect or assume. And that's wrong. Not because they shouldn't. Maybe they should help you with the dishes. Maybe they should not fall asleep at 6 o'clock. Maybe they should plan date nights. Maybe they should this and that and the other, right? Like, there's a million things that your spouse should do to show up 100% as the best spouse for them. However, they don't know what's going on in your head. Remember how I said in relationships, people are two different, like there's two different people with completely different reactions to life, perspectives, and just needs that need fulfilled. If you're not saying your feelings out loud, your spouse or your significant other is not a mind reader. They will never know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you want them to do, what you want them to say. They have no idea. And I don't know if this is just a man thing or just a human thing, but if you're not communicating, so number 3, stop expecting, communicate better. If you're not communicating with your spouse, the problem that you're holding on to and harboring in your heart, the anger that you have, the resentment that you're holding on to because they didn't do that, because they didn't say this, because they did do this and you didn't like it, right? If you don't express that and you don't say it in full on, like, not read between the lines sentences, not you should be a mind reader and know why I'm mad, if you don't fully 100% say, honey, it really hurt my feelings when I asked you to take the clothes out of the wash machine and put them in the dryer and you didn't. If you don't say that, they have zero idea. If you don't say, honey, it really hurt my feelings when I asked you to go on a date night with me and you didn't, right? You have to truly express it. Maybe they laughed because of your shirt. I don't know, something as simple as that. If you don't say, it really hurts my feelings that you laugh at my clothes, they're not going to know that. And I know that's the most random thing. I don't even know why I said that, but it's for real. No matter what it is, if you don't communicate with your spouse and let them know exactly how you feel, they can't fix that, right? And I think too often we want to play small. We want to keep our feelings in. We would rather just sit and hurt and just not be happy than bring it up and have it be a big fight and all these things, right? I think the power right here that I really want to give you is that, one, your feelings are not wrong. Your feelings are valid, right? And maybe you're interpreting something they're saying or doing differently than what they expect or than what they meant. But if you don't express it, you're never going to know, right? And if we're holding on to these negative emotions, then our pastor, the one who married us, he gave me this analogy that was so powerful, and I've used in my marriage nonstop since then. He said, in a marriage, you have two people here, right? And every time there's a problem, there's a brick that's laid right here in the middle. And so if you have a problem, they didn't do the laundry like you asked, there's a brick. They forgot about date night, there's a brick. They said something that wasn't nice, there's a brick. Do you see this wall that's being built up? If you don't tear the brick down or tear the wall down brick by brick, face the issue as it comes, you will end up with a wall this tall and two people on both sides and no communication, no way to connect to each other because there's a huge wall of problems in the middle, right? So it's so incredibly important that you stop expecting them to read your mind. Stop expecting them to show up a certain way. Stop expecting them to fix all the things and instead communicate that with them. Instead, talk about how you're feeling. Talk about what you need. Talk about your day. Talk about all the things. And I know in marriage, especially add in kids, add in life, add in work, add in home chores, like the time's not there. Let's just be real. You get caught up in the hustle and bustle and you just don't have the time. But I want to remind you, when the kids are gone, when the work changes, when you're in this home, it's just going to end up being you two together. And I don't want you to get so busy in life that you get to this empty nest season and you have no idea who the person is standing next to you. And I really, really kind of want to encourage you to start now. If you want a better marriage, it's time to be more intentional. These tips have been the biggest help for me. These tips have really just made my marriage 100 times better, right? It's allowed me to learn how to communicate, allowed me to learn about myself and what I need, allows me to show up better as a wife. It allows me to truly feel like I got this figured out, feel like I'm on the right path. But let me tell you, it's not easy. There will be ups, there will be downs, there will be hard times, there will be hard conversations, there will be bad days. But at the end of the day, if you always choose them and you always ask yourself, am I being the best wife that I can be? Am I being the best husband that I can be? And you can answer yes, then you're doing what you can. And if you answer no, it's time to ask yourself, okay, what can I do to change this? And those are my 3 biggest tips. Figure out love languages. Be proactive. Own your marriage. And stop expecting. Start communicating. That right there, those 3 simple things have transformed my marriage over time. It's always a struggle. It's always a challenge, and you always have a choice. And I want you to choose your spouse. I want you to choose your happiness. I want you to choose to grow together. So I hope this was helpful. If you loved it, please let me know below. And if you have any questions, drop them down here. I am happy to answer any questions you can. I'll talk to you later.